program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
We have just found a beautiful young female leopard. This is so exciting, and this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, everyone. Isn't this amazing? What a great start. We've just found the young female leopard. It appears to be Xongile. And funnily enough, she looks like she's alone for the moment. I wonder if her mother, Karula, has left her in this area. Let's see if she has a drink though. She's walking around almost like she's searching for something. I was thinking she might come and have a drink. But what a fantastic surprise. Good morning, my name is Byron, and on camera this morning is Brian with me and the thumb, and then we have Jamie and Gendre on the other vehicle, and then of course Jerry and Rebecca in the final control. Now this is such a great start. I was hoping to find Karula with the youngsters. That's what I came looking for this morning, and fortunately we've managed to bump into the young female. Now let's see if she does drink. That's a beautiful view of her. This is really, really a great treat. And don't forget, everyone, we are completely live. So send us your questions and your comments either on Twitter at #SafariLive or email us questions@WildEarthTV. And we'll gladly answer your questions and your comments. It's always great hearing from our viewers. Now, this is very, very special. I'm so happy to see her. Now, I wonder if the female has walked through here, the adult female, Karula. Alright, let me try reposition for us quickly. Oh dear. Liz, thank you very much. Maybe a little bit of luck, who knows. There we go. Let's see. I always want to try and get a view of a leopard drinking, and especially photographers. Let's see, she seems a little bit cautious, almost like she's not too sure where she should be drinking. I'm still just scanning this area very carefully to see if the female isn't around. Karula. Or perhaps the other young cub, Hosana. Oh, she is drinking. Now, that is wonderful. Now, you see, she's still nervous. You can see, typical young cub. She's not too sure what's in the water hole. There might be one or two little terrapins in there that are moving, and maybe she's a little nervous of the movement in the water. You know what, I can hear a few francolins alarm calling just off to our left, so directly behind Xongile, down in the drainage line in the Mulwati. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe one or two of the other leopards are down there. And I will go have a look, but this is just such a lovely view. I'm going to see if I can't maybe reposition quickly. I'll tell you why, usually leopards, if they do drink for a while. She may be a little bit different. Let me just see. Bear with me for a second. Alright, while I get into position here, let's quickly head to Jamie and let her say good morning to you.
there, very good morning to all of you and welcome on the sunrise safari. Although I have to confess, I think your chances of a spectacular sunrise this morning are slim. It's beautiful weather, but it's not really conducive to spectacular red, gold and orange sunrises on this beautiful morning. My name is Jamie and this morning I have Xongile on camera with me. And it seems as though it's quite a gloomy morning, although off to a fantastic start with Byron and that gorgeous leopard cub. She really is too adorable for words, that little one. She's developed quite the character. And looks as though, I'm going to stop for a second so that you can let me attempt to get the antenna out of the way. Looks as though the rain is bucketing down over the Drakensberg Mountains, so much so that you actually can't see the Drakensberg Mountains. So somewhere across to the western edge of our area, the rain is pouring down. I wish they'd send a little bit our way. That would be very convenient. However, not all things are not working out in our favour. This morning, Byron is still with that leopard cub and we don't want to miss a moment. So off you pop to him and I'll see you soon.
Well, she's still sitting in front of the little waterhole, the little pan. This is such a nice surprise. It is so great when your mornings start like this. It looks like that little dry spell that I had the other day is finished, which is nice. Oh, this little female is just wonderful. I was watching the footage that James got the other day, James and Xongile, with this female up in the tree and how curious she was. And that is just an incredible experience. Such an amazing bit of interaction from a young leopard. And I have seen it before where young leopards are a bit curious, and we do still need to be careful, but it just shows, with us being out here and being respectful of the animals and taking our time, tracking, following them. Occasionally the young animals do get quite curious and they will come have a look and see or investigate rather. But that was just an incredible sighting that he had. And this too, just to see her exploring, it is wonderful. This is so great. This really is so great. And I really do enjoy seeing leopards at this age because, as I said, it's this exploring stage where the female will potentially leave her cubs for a little bit longer periods of time. And when she does that, they'll explore. They'll move around a little bit more than usual. They'll go and have a look what is around, just like Xongile is doing now. Having a look around this mud wallow. It's almost like she's coming to pose for us. So close to us. This is maybe a nice view of spot patterns. Those of you who would like to get a look at a spot pattern. She appears to be a 4-3 from what I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left, and then, well, as I'm looking at her, 4 on the left, so that would be the 4 on her right hand side of her face, and then the 3 spots on the other side, just above that whisker line. That's usually how we do identify leopards, it's by the spot pattern. So she appears to be a 4-3 because each of those spots are unique, And especially those four on this side are very clear. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, and then that fourth one just a little bit above the smaller spot. So Gabriel Norton, you're a new viewer, and welcome to you. Lovely to have you on Safari Live. And you wanted to know, is it usual for a leopard to go to a waterhole by itself? Well, yes, it is, because leopards are generally solitary animals, so they move around by themselves. The reason why I'm surprised to see this female by herself is and exploring a waterhole by herself is because she's still young, and she does rely a lot on the mother, the female, who still provides food for her, but it's not unusual to see a leopard at a waterhole by itself, not by any stretch of imagination. They are solitary animals, and when they do move around, it's by themselves, and they'll go and drink by themselves. But I've got a feeling that either the adult female or the young male, who is her brother, is around in this area. Just because I heard some Franklin alarm calling in the drainage lines, and she came out of that area, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're down there somewhere. Perhaps the female has moved off trying to hunt, and she's left these two youngsters in this area. Who knows? Oh, excuse me. Sorry. And as Franklin's calling again. Michelle, you wanted to know what age would we expect to see Xongile make her first kill? So she's still very young. And for the moment, she would try and hunt perhaps squirrels, as we saw them try to do the other day. Her and her young brother hunted a squirrel, maybe a Franklin or two. So they'd be learning at this age, but not old enough and not big enough to really hunt anything large yet, or any antelope just yet. I would say, on average, Michelle, it's probably about just over a year. So anywhere between a year and 3 months to a year and a half, then they would have to start hunting for themselves. And that's usually the age that leopard cubs become independent, where the females do tend to chase them off. The average age is about a year and a half. So by that stage, they would have to be able to hunt for themselves. But I think these little cubs are just a little bit too young still. But they'll be learning, perhaps learning from the female, trying to watch her. This is lovely. There's birds calling in the distance. Cape turtle doves this morning calling. There is a grey-headed bush shrike in the distance. Let's see what she does. It's almost like she's just coming to have a look, exploring, wondering what is around this waterhole. And she keeps having a look at us. Wonder if she wants us to. It's almost like she's just so comfortable with us being around that she's just checking that if we see anything perhaps of interest that we could show her. And typical cub behavior, little restless, moving around quite a bit. And also we're so fortunate, it's nice and cool at the moment. So she'll probably be a lot more active than she usually is. Moving about, having a look. Let's see where she goes. But I wonder where the others are. It would be wonderful if all three of them were out here drinking at the waterhole. That would be really amazing. Rob, I don't think this cub is nervous. Well, to an extent. I think she's cautious because she's alone. She's learning. She's by herself. For the first few months of her life, the two young cubs would be left together. And we've seen lately, the last week or so, the young male has wandered off quite a bit by himself. We saw him yesterday afternoon. And now the young female's wandering off a little bit by herself. So this is all a learning process. So I wouldn't say they're nervous. And I mean, for her to lie down like that, she's definitely not nervous. If a leopard was nervous, it would run away and try and hide from anything. I think she's just cautious and learning. She's having a look around. What is around here? And as I said, because they're so curious, they're looking. Perhaps she's looking for some food. What is around that she could potentially play with or try and hunt and learn how to hunt. So, I don't think it's a case of her looking nervous at all. It's just very inquisitive, constantly looking around, seeing what is moving around her. That's all. Michael, it's not really instinctual for young cubs just to move off away from the females. You wanted to know how will they move off or how will they know. So usually the female just tells them. She will hiss and growl a bit at them, and she basically chases them away. That's usually how it happens. However, some females are a little bit more tolerant than others. I've seen some females allow their cubs to hang around for up to 2 years, which is unusual. But then I've also seen a female leave her cub and chase her cub away at a year old. So it does vary, depends on the leopard. But the females are the ones that generally warn the cubs. They hiss, they growl, and they usually don't go back and fetch them. So some arrow-marked babblers calling in the distance. We can hear. Mario, you wanted to know why don't we see the male leopard as much? Now, Mario, are you referring to the young male cub or males in general? I think one of the main reasons would be the last few days the big males, the big dominant males, their territories are much larger than females. So they're possibly just patrolling territories and maybe have a kill somewhere, and we just haven't seen them for a while. We saw Tingana not too long ago, I think 3 or 4 days ago. He is the big dominant male that patrols this area generally. There are other males around, and they do come in to the area occasionally, but because males are so territorial, they don't really cross over into each other's territory. And for this area, we've got about 3 or 4 different females that we see on a fairly regular basis. There was Shadow yesterday, and there was Karula. This little one was seen, and then obviously the young male was seen, her brother, but he's a young male, not territorial yet at all. Obviously he's still hanging around with the mother, but I think it's purely because in terms of territory size, males are bigger, females are smaller, so you might get more females in a smaller area, whereas you'd probably only have one male moving around. That's a lovely yawn. Cleaning herself, and big cats do this quite regularly, do clean themselves, especially leopards. Especially after they've fed on something. And yesterday the female did go and fetch these cubs and bring them all the way down here. They were not in this area yesterday morning. They were quite far from here, a few miles away. But the female went and fetched them. She did have a kill. So they possibly fed a little bit last night or yesterday, and maybe still just cleaning herself. Now, Roger, the leopards, they do call when they are looking for one another at times, but you must remember, Roger, leopards generally, they're solitary animals, so they don't usually call to look or find one another, look for one another or find one another. They will call for territorial purposes, to warn other leopards that this is their territory. This young female wouldn't necessarily call, because I think she's been left here on purpose by the mother. So she knows just to keep quiet. She doesn't want to draw attention to herself either. If she constantly called, other predators like hyena or lions, if they were around, might come and investigate. She doesn't want to draw attention to herself. So no, I don't think there's any reason for her to call. And she'll just wait, hang around here, and wait for the female to come back. We were just fortunate that she came out and we found her. But generally speaking, when they are left on their own, then they'll stay on their own and just wait for the female to return. So there's no reason for her to call now. They do give the females, when they come back to find the cubs, she will give a little call, and it's like a little ow, 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 to try and call the cubs, and they'll then know it's her, and they'll come running out and find her. But for the cubs to call the female, only when she gets there. They won't call unnecessarily. Alright, well, what an incredible start. I'm going to sit here a little bit longer because this is such a wonderful sighting. But Jamie has found some other big cats to show you.
Aha! What a fantastic start to a Tuesday morning. from seeing their tracks coming out of Simbambili to finding the lions on their buffalo kill right next to a dam called, or a waterhole called Sydney's Dam, which is in Buffelshoek, we have our wonderful Nkuhumas. It's so special to see them because, of course, yesterday I was hearing all sorts of updates about them, and they were stretching and yawning and going for a walk and having a drink at Simbambili Dam, and we couldn't get to them. So to see our much beloved pride of lions is always a very special thing indeed. Unfortunately, though, because it is on Buffelshoek, which is a property to the north of our boundary, unfortunately we can't go any closer. So I can't really improve the view that we have. However, it is always special to catch up, especially on such an atmospheric morning. Here's one little straggler. What you up to, little monkey? Go eat your breakfast. Watching the rest of the pride as they slowly but surely move towards Sydney's Dam, and I wonder if they're going to go and have a drink. I don't know, Genre, can you see those ones on the? Yes, you can. Perfect, thank you. One lioness, two lionesses. I actually think that this kill was relatively recent, at least in the last 3 or 4 hours, that these lionesses took down this buffalo. There was still a little bit of growling, a little bit of fussing over who had a chance to eat first. And now the lionesses are looking, I can't see, but she's... there we go. I was about to say, you see that hunched posture of the lioness? She might be watching something, but she's up now. And I'm hoping that while we watch these lions and at Sydney's Dam itself, or Sydney's waterhole, I'm hoping that you really might get to hear one of the most impressive sounds. What are you ladies looking at? Of the bush. And that is the call of the African fish eagle. And we'll go on to that in a moment, but I just want to... I actually think I want to go forward. I'm a little bit concerned about losing signal as we go forward into the dip, but I do want to... Oops. Sorry, I was speaking over the African fish eagle's call. Okay. It seems as though it's actually the lionesses have relaxed. There's some arguing over the remains of the buffalo. Chandra, I've just realized. Remember when I said the guinea fowl are making a fuss about nothing? They're not obviously making a fuss about nothing, because obviously they've been watching these lions and alarm calling at them. I always find it astounding how... I shouldn't find it astounding the number of times I've seen it, but just the aggression between the females, and it's all forgotten. And welcome to BHJ Horses on this sunrise safari. You wanted to know how long the pride will be feeding on this... Hold on, go back. It's minor scrap. Little bit of growling between them. Sorry, horses. I'm going to shorten your name to horses. I hope you don't mind. Or perhaps BHJ. Either way, you want to know how long this carcass will last them? Not long at all. So there are 5 lionesses in this pride, at least as far as I can see at the moment. There are 5 lionesses. There might not be 5 lionesses at the moment. There might also be a male somewhere in the vicinity, but I doubt it, just because of the fact that the lionesses are feeding now and all looking relatively full. So I don't think there's a male, but there are 5 lionesses and 6 cubs, which is a lot of bellies to feed. Even though the cubs are just a few months old, the oldest are coming up to 6 months, or just 6 months. The youngest are around 4. And despite the fact that they are still young, they are hungry little creatures. And as a result, this carcass won't last them long at all. It's not a big buffalo. It looks like it is either a young male or a female, from what little I can see. The Nkuhuma is proving once again that they are a force to be reckoned with. This This is the second time I've found the Nkuhumas really, really easily in the last week. I'm going to have to start paying for it. I feel as though somehow bush karma is going to come back and bite me. Here comes James and our special guests. So James is driving out of WildEarthTV Lodge, which means that he can cruise along towards the lions and come a little bit closer. So when you see a vehicle getting closer and you're wondering about why it is that we can't go there, it's just traverse agreements. It's just different traverse agreements. Excitement. And the lioness watching them. So there you go. Now typically we have seen the Nkuhumas in the past with their buffalo kill, to go back to how long it'll take them to finish it off. We've seen Nkuhumas in the past with buffalo kills, big buffalo bulls, that have lasted them a good 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 or 5 days, depending on how many lionesses are there. I love that possessive paw. This, by the way, it's mine. I want it. But now things have drastically changed with the arrival of the cubs, even though they are quite young and quite small. Fortunately for them, their moms and aunts are very proficient hunters, and they seem to have, I wouldn't call it an unparalleled success rate, but it is certainly an extraordinary success rate when it comes to catching and killing buffalo over the last few weeks. A little cub back there, ears back, already showing the signs of aggression that we've seen as the cubs have grown older. They, at such a tender age, know that they have to fight for their place at the table. And fortunately, they know that usually, mind you, that mom or aunt is probably not going to hurt too much if they do get into a fight about whose chance it is to feed. Now, Red, you say, so is it only these 2 lionesses? No, Red, there are definitely 4. So remember how we saw the 2 lionesses looking towards the water hole, and I said, they might have seen something. There are definitely 2 lionesses. I'm not sure if there could actually be 3 across the other side of the vegetation where James is, and I'll ask him in a moment. Now, it's either 4 or 5. There's definitely 4. So one of them is lying there. The second lioness moved off a little bit, and you can see James and the rest of the crew watching in that direction. So she might have gone to have a drink. Now, absolutely, there are more than 2 lionesses. As for cubs, it's been a bit tricky to do a head count, just in terms of the distance that we have to keep. Unfortunately, we can't go any closer, so I can't do a head count, but since James is very conveniently driving a vehicle that can drive there, we'll find out shortly. And Shlak, you want to know where the dominant male is. Well, here's the fascinating thing about lion prides and the way in which they work. Movies like The Lion King and sort of traditional documentaries have taught us, and obviously documentaries have changed in their style, but traditional documentaries have taught us that there is a pride of lions, and the pride of lions has 1 or 2 or 3 males that heads them up. That's actually not exactly how prides work. A pride is just females and their offspring, and they move about in their own territory, and that will border on the territory of another pride and so on. And then what happens is we get either a single male or a group of males known as a coalition. And a coalition of males will have a very large territory that will actually overlap with that of several different prides that they will be dominant over. And what that means, I don't know if any of you saw the Swainson's spurfowl there. That's a bird that we don't often get to see. Sorry, distraction! Look at it with its red face. Swainson's spurfowl for all of you with your budding bird lists. Sorry, I'll go back into lion dynamics in a moment, but that is an opportunity not to be missed. Well done, Gendre. Swainson's, S-W-A-I-N-S-O-N-S, Swainson's spurfowl. Related to the Franklins, of course. Right, so dominant males will have a very, very large territory. Sometimes they're with the prides, whether they are mating with the females or sharing their kills, and sharing is a very, very strong use of the word sharing. Usually dominating their kills is perhaps more accurate. But a lot of the time they're off either on their own or in groups, busy defending their territory or just moving about on their own. So in this area, our dominant males are known as the Birmingham boys, and there's 4 of them. As to where they are now, I can't tell you. They'll be somewhere, but they've got a good 8,000, at least an 8,000 hectare territory, if not larger. So they're not always with the females. I think that is a fact for which the females are occasionally grateful, just because for them it means that they get to enjoy the carcass unchallenged. But the males do play a very important role, and they'll be traveling and moving about, particularly at night, defending their territory. And the fact that they do so is it's crucial to particularly the survival of these little cubs that you're seeing. Because the minute that those boys disappear, the minute that they lose their grip on their territory, their cubs that they have fathered will be killed by incoming new males. Which is all part of it. Sounds harsh. It's all part of the natural cycle of lions and making sure that there's no inbreeding. But the male lions do form a very, very crucial part. It's not a hands-on part of the cubs' lives, but it is an absolutely essential part. And welcome to BHJ horses. Shall I call you horses or shall I call you BHJ? Which one would you prefer? Because at some point I'm going to get that wrong. DHJ. Oh well, I'd better get it right then if I'm going to shorten your name. Apologies. Very good morning to you once again. I've completely forgotten your question now. We were talking about lions. Oh yes, I remember. Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you very much. You wanted to know if lions chuff like tigers. No, they don't. Tigers are actually the only creatures that chuff, and it's a sort of a... I can't quite imitate the tiger chuff that they do. Probably the only animal that comes close-ish to a tiger chuff out here is maybe a leopard, when they call for their cubs, and that's a sort of a ow, ow sound that they make. Lions don't chuff, they do roar, which puts them as part of the same family as the tigers and the leopards. It's the Panthera family, that ability to roar, which occurs in the hyoid suspensorium. So the voice box, which in human beings is a solid fused organ, whereas in lions and in leopards and in tigers, all of the cats that make a roaring sound, it is not fused, so it can expand. It's called the suspensorium. Leopards come close. Lions do contact call, and we've been fortunate enough to watch these lovely ladies with their cubs over the last few months, and you get this amazing sort of ow, ow sound from the cubs. Not that sound, that's a different thing altogether. That's just angry. And then you do get the low contact calls of the lionesses, which sort of sound a bit like this. So those are the general sounds that you'll hear. Cheetah also have a wide variety of sounds that they make. They do not roar, which is one of the reasons why they are in a separate genus from the Panthera cats. So the lions and the leopards and the tigers. They chirp and they purr, and no, they don't really chuff. It's a stretch to say that they chuff. They sort of go as a contact call between the moms and cubs. So there you go, the wide vocal variety of our different cats, as done by Jamie. Disclaimer, I don't claim to be an expert at imitating the cats, although I think my lion cub impression is I've got it down. Jerry in Final Control, who is directing this morning's show, she has given me an 8 out of 10 for my animal impressions. I think I lost points on that cheetah call. That cheetah call was a bit poor. I feel as though my leopard contact call with cubs was pretty good, and I feel as though my cub contact call, lion contact call, was pretty good. Yeah. Jerry says leopard was good. I'm not going to even attempt to do a lion growl or a lion roar. I know my limits. Bear with me one moment. I would just like to contact Mr. Hendry, provided he's listening to his radio. James. Yay! Do you know if there are 4 or 5 lionesses? Copy, thank you. James says he thinks there are 5. He thinks he's counted 5. They are sort of moving about, so it's difficult to keep track, but it does seem as though there are 5 lionesses. So all 5 of our lovely Nkuhuma ladies are here and are present. So all of the essential parts, not essential parts, that's a very poor way of phrasing it, my apologies. All of the best parts of the buffalo kill are gone. The very first thing that almost all predators will eat when they catch something is the organs. Things like the liver, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, all of those, of course, have an incredible amount of nutrients, whether they are acting as a storage unit or for whatever reason. They are very, very nutrient rich. So the parts of the animal that are most in demand will be the organs. And you can see that we're looking into the chest cavity of this buffalo. All of the organs are gone already. And it might have been that this kill is, I would suggest, is a few hours old. At first I thought it was fresh, just judging by the sounds that I could hear, but I actually think it's a few hours old. It's always brrr. Yes, I hear you. And welcome to Gary, who would like to know what all of the insects are that are flying around the buffalo. They're carcass flies. So you said they look rather large. They are rather large. They're probably about that big. And it's something that, as you become more familiar with our live safaris, Gary, and as we get, obviously when the kills are on or in an area where we can go a little bit closer, you'll find that we're often plagued by the carcass flies that buzz around the carcasses. They'll actually come and sit around us. We'll be waving our hands around like we're doing some kind of bizarre fly dance. They are carcass flies, big bottle green flies with red heads. So that's what's buzzing around. In next to no time, as in the next 24 hours, this carcass will be teeming with maggots. That will then, of course, go about completing their life cycle in terms of growing. And as I'm sure many of you know, maggots, their growth rate depends very much on the temperature that they are exposed to. So on a chilly morning like this morning, and forgive me, off the top of my head, I can't remember how warm it was or how cool it was. I have a vague feeling it was low 20s, 21-ish. Mm-hmm. It was. There we go. Genre says yes, 21 degrees centigrade, which is 71 in Fahrenheit. So yes, it's a nippy-ish morning for us here in middle of summer with the clouds. So the growth rate of the maggots might be slightly slower, but we will continue to see flies buzzing around that carcass for at least another 24 hours, if not longer. And after that will come the ticks and the carrion beetles. And just by the way, speaking of carrion beetles, I don't know if any of you were watching the bushwalk that we did a few days ago, where we were sitting at a civetry, which is a type. It's basically a midden that a certain type of animal leaves. But the beetles that we were looking at were in fact carrion beetles. I double checked. I had a feeling that they were, but they were in fact carrion beetles, not they're sort of part of, they're connected to the dung beetle family, but only in a very vague way. So they were carrion beetles. The little face of that cub. You can see the female utilizing her claws there to hold the buffalo down as she tucks in. Now, meal times for our new viewers, meal times with lions are always like this. There is always lots of growling, and even with the cubs involved, often the cubs find themselves at the receiving end of a swat from mom or aunt's massive paws. So meal times are, it's basically every lion for themselves, even for the little cubs. There's very little altruistic about lions at the dinner table. Oh, yes, little one. Sorry, lioness. I don't know if she heard me. There, she's calling. Whoops. I actually think she did hear me. I didn't mean to, but I actually think she did hear me call. Not this lioness, but the one that was at the kill. As I did the little owl sound of the cub, which I'm going to cease from doing, I'm not sure if I'm really overestimating my ability to do lion cub calls, but she immediately looked up and started contact calling. I'm not sure. It's definitely, her reaction was almost instantaneous. It's the one with her head up, Xongile. As soon as I did that cub call, she looked across at me and then started doing the low lioness contact call. Oops, sorry, girl. Sorry. That was totally unintentional if you did actually respond to me. I might be wrong. She might just be calling her cubs. But it did feel as though I accidentally sounded too much like a cub. Look at that little cub at the back hissing. Cheeky monster. Stop hissing and eat, then. Your mom's not doing anything to stop you. Ooh. Angry little lion cubs. Just like your pet cats or your pet dogs at home, or your pet horses actually. If you're familiar with animals at all, you'll immediately know that ears back posture tells you a great deal about the animal's mood, and the same thing applies to lions. When they're cross, when they're aggressive, they will have their ears flat back like that. It's an aggressive defensive pose, if that makes any sense. That ears back at the kill. They're saying this is my patch, but at the same time they are patiently waiting to be on the receiving end of the odd blow. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer as the lions squabble over their breakfast. Excuse me. However, in the meantime, there is somebody who would very much like to say good morning to you, so let's head over to Stef.
Good morning and welcome to the Bushwalk segment of this morning's Sunrise Safari. I'm Stef and today on camera we have VM. And what are we up to today? Well, it's actually quite a tough question today, to tell you quite honest. The wind is busy blowing out of the southwest, which is unusual. Either we get wind from the south or southeast, or we get wind from the north. So today, with wind blowing out of the southwest, it becomes a little bit trickier to decide what to do. Generally, we get quite big rains that come with that. And as you can see, a band of clouds there on the horizon is very dark over the escarpment, the Great Drakensberg Mountains. It forms a ridge of mountains basically stretching from the Cape right down in the southern point of South Africa, right up to about that point where they disappear into another mountain range called the Soutpansberg, or the Salt Pan Mountains. Beautiful range of mountains where we live over here that we can see. But what it does do is it pushes up a whole bunch of moisture that we get from the Mozambique Channel and the Indian Ocean. South Africa is flanked by the Atlantic Ocean on the western side, and the Indian Ocean on the eastern side. And in summertime, a lot of moist air gets sucked off of the sea and pushed inland. And they bunch up against the mountains that we've got in the distance over there, probably about 80 to 90 miles from where we're standing right now. And it lifts that moisture up into the sky, and the moisture condenses into clouds, and then we get these fluffy, puffy clouds that we can see over here. They can sometimes stick around for a few days, giving us a lot of rain. How does that influence our walk? Well, we're obviously not going to be trying to walk a marathon today. We're going to be trying to stay somewhere where, if it does start raining, we can get you back to the tent rather safely. But while we're about it, why don't we take a walk across quarantine and see what we've got on these massive clearings. This is quite easily the largest clearing at Djuma. And I must be honest with you, they have got almost always something happening on these plains. But while we decide what is here today of note to show you, why don't we send you over to Byron, who's got a little surprise for you.
And look what we have managed to find, everyone. This is a first for me. Hadeda chicks. Look at the female feeding the little chicks. I don't think I've ever seen a Hadeda in a nest. Never mind these little chicks. There are 3 chicks in there. We spotted them. I've just driven around this drainage line having a look to see if I can't find any of the other leopards, if the female Karula or the young male Hosanna is in the area, but no sign of them just yet. Isn't this amazing? This is so special. This is something very, very different. Wow. I must be honest, it looks like the one chick is getting more food than the others. Wow, that looks like a lot of hard work for the female. Feeding these 3 very, very hungry chicks. The one at the back doesn't look like it's getting any food. But isn't that incredible? I'm sure that's a first for a lot of you too. I don't know anyone who's seen Hadeda chicks like this. Brian, you've never seen it before, have you?
First time as well.
Yeah. That's very, very cool, exciting. Just shows you never know what you're going to find out here. Well, that was a very interesting find and a nice surprise. Ariel, you say this is awesome. You've never seen this before? Yeah, I mean, you know, it's always wonderful seeing chicks because usually birds are very secretive with their chicks and are well hidden. Look at these Hadedas. No feathers, just little bundles of fluff, really. Oh, that's wonderful. Red, do you want to know if I think the female feels any discomfort while regurgitating food? No, I don't think so at all. It's natural for them. They regurgitate food to feed their chicks. That's what they do. So I don't think it's discomfort at all. You can hear orange-breasted bushshrike calling and a red-chested cuckoo in the distance. A lot of birds calling at the moment. Zach, you're a new viewer. Welcome, Zach. Great to have you on Safari Live. Now, you'd like to know how big those birds are. So, the Hadeda is a fairly large bird, the Hadeda Ibis, and the best is if I show you in front of me. The Hadeda, as it stands, would probably be about that big as it stands next to me, maybe a little bit bigger. They've got fairly long legs. That's how big our Hadeda would be. I'd say those chicks are about that size, by the looks of things. About that size, so fairly small. There's that red-chested cuckoo calling. Somewhere around here. Alright, well, shall we leave the chicks to enjoy their breakfast? It looks like they might even be finished now. Well, that was wonderful for the Hadeda to show us her chicks. Lovely sighting, something very unique and different. That was great. Now, Djuma horses, you're a new viewer, welcome. You want to know if there's a pecking order with these chicks, if one is more dominant and feeds. So I don't know with Hadeda. Like I said, I've never seen Hadeda chicks. By the looks of things with them feeding, yes, there is a pecking order because one seemed to get a lot more food than the others. But I'm not entirely sure. But generally with birds, there is often a pecking order. One does tend to be a little bit more dominant and gets a bit more food. And some pecking orders are so great that the one chick may kill the other chick so that it gets all the food. That does happen with certain certain species of birds. Now, can you believe it, but our young female leopard has disappeared. Where has she gone? I did a quick little loop. She was lying right over there. And she's gone. Alright, well, let me try and have a look around here. While we do that, let's head back to Stef, who's on the bushwalk.
And we've got a bit of a mystery going on over here. This is very obviously hippo dung. And why I say obviously is that hippo, being closer related to whales and manatees than they are to elephants and rhinoceros, they don't have any exocrine glands, so they don't have any glands on their skin that they can use to mark territory. And so what a hippo does is he utilizes his urine and his feces as signposts, much the same as an animal would use a gland on their face or a gland on their feet or a gland situated underneath their tail. Hippos only have the use of their dung and their feces, and they use it to great effect. The hippo's got this big flat tail, probably about this big. They'll reverse up to a bush and they'll start to defecate and flap their tail. They wave it around furiously, at the same time defecating, and it sprays their dung over quite an enormous area. So part of the dung is here. I'll take 2 big steps and you'll see how far it can actually spray. So that does 2 big steps, easily about 12 feet or so, spread across. The hippo would have been standing facing in this direction. He would have marked his territory, and then as he moved off he's been dribbling some fluid, which is a bit of a worry. You can see here, there's some fluid that's come out here. This is not urine because of its greenish color that you can see. That's definitely fluid stained by vegetable matter. It's then drips everywhere on the floor here. To here, another patch comes out here, drips on the floor, and more here, and more drips down here. And if you look up down the road, you can see for quite some time this hippo has had basically some fluid falling out of him. Now, a runny tummy in animals is obviously never a good sign. A runny tummy in animals shows that their digestive system or the digestive tract has an infection of some sort. As far as I understand it, I'm obviously not a veterinarian, so I'm not too sure exactly why this would be. I only know that rhinoceros suffer from it, elephants suffer from it, warthogs suffer from it, and of course hippo do suffer from these maladies every now and again, probably brought on by the vegetation that they're eating. There's still not a lot of vegetation for an animal the size of a hippopotamus to have as much food of a good quality that he's needing. You can see that although there's some grass out there and it's greening up so beautifully, that for an animal the size of a hippo, there's definitely not too much. And what I think has happened is this hippo's gone and eaten a plant that contains some or other type of compound that has upset its tummy, and now it's walked off. And I have a feeling it's heading off in the same direction as Treehouse Dam is located in. Treehouse Dam is where you can see that big green tree on the hill. It lies between that green tree and left, where basically the trees cut out the roads. It lies just inside there, not too far away from here, and I think that is where this hippo is making its way to. It wouldn't be a bad idea and see if he got there, see what he's been up to. So we'll head out to Treehouse Dam. That's the plan now anyway, and we'll see why has this hippo got such a runny tummy. Let's see how often he defecates over here. Right, let's carry on going, see what we can find today else for you. This mystery that is this hippo's runny tummy. Shame, I feel quite sorry for it. Never nice to be sick out here, you know. Now, you might be asking yourself the question, would we do something for this hippo? Only if this particular hippo's sickness had something to do with people. So if there was an anthropogenic or a people cause to this particular malady, ate a piece of plastic or, you know, something like this, got into a food store somewhere. In this particular case, this is 100% natural. Most of the time, hippo actually get over this pretty easily. I remember a couple of years ago, I was doing some research on the diseases that elephant and rhinoceros and hippopotamus and giraffe get, and it was remarkable to me that hippo caught half the diseases of the terrestrial animals. So half, the hippo's list of diseases was half that of even an elephant's. So in general, I think they're quite hardy animals, and so there's no need for concern over here over this young hippo. I think he'll be just fine as soon as the vegetation repairs itself. Now Dale, you've asked me where do these hippo go with the lack of water around. Dale, luckily in this part of the Kruger National Park, where we are situated on the western side, there's a lot of pumped pans. There are also a lot of pans that have been man-made. In other words, creeks have been dammed up to hold water into the dry season, or hold water for longer into the dry season. And so there's always a puddle or two out here that hippo, like this particular hippo, have access to. So not to worry, there's enough water out here for these hippos. It's not always very deep, it's not always very pleasant, but there's definitely enough water. Different case on the eastern side of the Kruger National Park. On the eastern side, there's very few man-made dams and pans, and this year I've heard that over 1,000 hippopotamus succumbed to the drought, and that there's just bones bleaching or lying bleaching in the sun in fields. I still have yet to go and see it myself. These fields of bones, as some of my colleagues are referring to it. I look forward to seeing that, not in a gleeful way. It's going to be a macabre sighting, just to realize the depth that this drought that we've had has had, and the effect it's had on the animals. But one of the things that didn't seem to be too affected by animals whatsoever was this species of ant. This ant I only started to observe this particular year. I haven't observed this ant at another time. And I like to call it a cement ant. Not because that's its real name, but because it has this peculiar habit of cementing the entrance to their burrows with a substance that is crystalline almost in its hardness. It's much more resistant to erosion than the rest of the surrounding sand. So here you can see, just with me rubbing, I can rub away the sand fairly easily. But here you can see how resistant that crystalline is. And what it is, it's nothing less than a miracle. These ants are part of an order of insects called Hymenoptera, which are some of the most evolved organisms on the planet. Not sentient, as far as what we can tell, but definitely highly evolved. And this cementing of the entrance burrow is simply to stop water from eroding the entrance burrow and blocking their tunnels inside with eroded sand material. So water will come along, would move around and erode around the entrances to these burrows, leaving these slightly raised and a little bit resistant to the water's mechanizations, and then it moves off around and away. Isn't that incredible? You can see over here, in actual fact, it looks like they're building, just moving slow. They'll get up to speed as the day goes on. These are not very fast moving ants. They, for me, have a very bulbous head, quite short stubby mandibles, quite often on the predaceous. There we go, there's an ant that is reproductive. Most ants in a colony are females, most of them are also sterile, but these ones that come out with the wings are the new kings and queens of this ant colony. So what you're having a look at there, which is the first time I'm seeing it, is the new king or queen for one of these cement ant colonies. And that cement ant, remember, is in hyphens. Wonderful. I love watching these things. These particular ants don't have any grain stores yet, and it's because there hasn't been a lot of seeds around at the moment. I did notice towards the end of last year that they had these, where they'd discarded, they have these refuse dumps where they discard the empty husks of the grass seeds that they've taken down underground. And I have at times, actually I lie, here we go. Here's their refuse dump right here. So this discolored piece of sand that you're seeing over here, that is their refuse dump. Let's see if we can find one that comes and utilizes it. Generally these ants are busy doing something almost all the time. You could find them doing something almost anywhere. And on the fringes of these ants are usually the highly specialized predators that will utilize ant colonies for whatever. It's generally speaking food. The ants have larvae that are underground. They are looked after. They're normally white and encased in either they have not larvae, they've got pupa that are either encased in a white casing or held in an enclosed, basically like a comb, very similar to honey or honeycomb, and they're just a little bit underground over here. And there are a lot of predators that go into these ant nests, mimicking the smells of these ants, preying on the baby ants and on the adults. Here's another winged alate coming out here. Another future king and queen. Look there, and this one's even carrying a rock. What are you doing? That is the most bizarre thing. And why that is because ants are castes. They are born to perform a specific function. And for this ant, which is basically the new king or queen, to be dragging around a rock this size, it would be similar to, I don't know, a king or queen taking out their own dustbin bag or sweeping their own driveway. It's just something very, very different to see, and I wonder why they're doing that. That is very bizarre. Like I say, you learn something new out here every single day, to be honest. I've been doing this now close on 18 years, and every single day you see something new. What's going on here? Who knows? But anyway, I think I can only probably keep you entertained on ants for so long. And the days are wasting. There's one coming with some refuse that they're going to dump. And you can see that ant basically took out this piece of refuse, dumped it onto the refuse dump, and then is now moving back to their hole. Absolutely incredible. I love these little things. Still haven't figured out what these ants are. I've sent them away to a couple of friends of mine, but I think that we're only noticing these ants this year because of the fact that it's so dry and there's so little cover around, that what's happening is there's gaps in the vegetation that is busy opening, and we for the first time are observing this. And for the first time I noticed this white calcrete that they produce around the entrance to their burrows, and then I've been able to notice these ants, and so now I pick up these ants all over the place. They're fairly common ant out here, but not described in any book that I have or any book that any of my friends have got that are in the industry as well. So we're waiting for an epiphany here, for someone to help enlighten us. Now Jeffrey, all the way from Texas, I agree with you. I also love watching ants. They are always doing something, Jeffrey says. And they absolutely are. They definitely don't lie down and rest, that's for sure. They do have, it's interesting, they do have different periods of the day that they'll do different things in. For instance, there's an ant here called a cocktail ant that runs around with its tail cocked up in the air like this. And in the middle of the day, they are hunting furiously. At the beginning and at the end of every day, they are doing housekeeping. They keep their nests clean, and it's just always such an exciting thing to see the way that they change behavior through the day. And when they're hunting, you can't get close to these ants. They're just swarming everywhere. When they're busy building their nest, they come in and out at the most amazing speed. And you can sit right close to them. You can watch them doing their thing, and they hardly ever, you know, they don't move off. In other words, these particular ants, they don't move very fast at all. All right, I think we have talked enough about these ants. I think we can carry on going, but not before I want to pick up this and show you. This is the dung, the fresh dung of a scrub hare, one of the rabbit-like hares that we have out here. And this type of dung we don't see too often. Rabbits, like rats, practice they have a digestive practice where they eat their own dung. It's called coprophagy. And what they do is they produce two different types of pellets. They produce a pellet just like this of grass that has gone through a type of digestion, an early type of digestion in their tummies. Comes out like this. They deposit it in an area where they can find it very easily again, and then they re-ingest, they eat this again. And they draw the most nutrition, the most moisture that they can out of this pellet again. And when it comes out a second time, it is bleached almost white. But it's very common for us to find the dry pellets of these rabbits lying around. Not very common to find these newly formed pellets. And I think it's because these rabbits in this area are probably eating as much as they can to make use of the new grass. Their pellets from previous weeks have been rather poor in nutrition. But quite a nice find that in any case. All right, why don't we send you over to Byron to see what he's been up to over the last couple of minutes.
So our beautiful young female leopard pulled a disappearing act on us. She disappeared completely. We must have been gone for 2 minutes. We drove around and we looked for the other leopards I thought might be in the area. Did a little loop through the drainage line, saw the Hadeda, went back and she was gone. Disappeared, couldn't find her. It just shows you when they don't want to be seen, they will disappear. So I'm not sure which direction she went actually, because she was milling about. We think possibly maybe just south over our boundary. I think that would be the logical explanation, because we were right up against our southern boundary, or Vuyatela southern boundary. Rather Djuma. So I'm not sure. Yeah, interesting though. But wonderful view of her this morning. Lovely, oh sorry, spider webs. Lovely sighting of her. I'm still going to just scan this area quite carefully and just see if we don't find the female perhaps, or maybe the young male. It's been an exciting morning so far. Jamie finding the lions, and then of course it's always great having Stef out in the bushwalk. Just scanning these termite mounds and trees. Just having a good look, making sure we don't miss anything. Did see tracks of leopards walking through the drainage line, the Mulwati, and I think it was the female. Tamira, there are indeed hyena in this area. We do see them, but for some reason they've been quite scarce lately. We used to have spider hunting wasp that came past us there. So we do see hyena occasionally, and we see their tracks almost every day. They move through the areas at night, scavenging, looking for food. Now, we were very fortunate. Early in the year, we had a hyena den site on Djuma, and we got to see hyena every day. But they've moved off, they've moved into a different area, different den, probably found a different den site, and that does happen at times. And so since then we haven't seen too many of them, but they are around and we do see them on Safari Live. Wow, sorry, beautiful. Sorry, these brakes are horrific. I think there's a beautiful big male waterbuck that just ran off there. That was a massive, massive male. Let's see if we can see him again. I have seen him. I think we might get a view of him. He's just off to the right. I was moving through the thicket a little bit. Hang on. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful big male waterbuck. You can see those really, really big horns. The females don't have horns. He is massive though. Just even his body. Very, very thick, muscular build. Beautiful big male. He would most definitely be a dominant male. It's not unusual to find male antelope moving off by themselves, especially the larger ones. They probably set up a bit of a territory, try and find females and then mate with them. And there it goes, disappeared. It's a lovely morning, still very nice and cool, which is great. So I think it's because of the cool day we had yesterday. The day before was incredibly hot. Wow. Very, very hot. So it's nice to have some cool overcast weather. Makes a big change. And we got to see 2 young elephant bulls yesterday, and I'm hoping to see some more elephant hopefully fairly soon before I leave. It would be great to find a nice herd of elephants somewhere. There's a lot of birds calling. Woodland kingfishers calling at the moment. I could hear one calling behind us. Wonderful woodland kingfisher call. Alright, I'm going to continue searching this area very carefully. I just want to make sure we haven't missed anything. While I do that, let's head over to Jamie and get an update from her.
And as Byron said, the birds are chirping away this morning. It is a really, truly beautiful morning. Unfortunately, we have left the lions so that we can make space for some of the other vehicles. Everybody seems to be up and about this morning, much like the birds. And because there are other vehicles in this area, we've made some space for them to go and enjoy this particular sighting. And I will be listening to the Game Drive channel for any updates as to what these lions are up to, and if we have a chance, then we'll go back before the end of the sunrise safari. So now I'm cruising along the northern boundary of Djuma, just taking in the views, enjoying the sun breaking through the clouds and warming us up, and looking for the ground hornbills that are always, I say always, that's a really silly word to use out here. The ground hornbills that are often in this particular area. No sign of them this morning, but that might have just been that they've already moved off to feed. So a ground hornbill is a big turkey-sized, very endangered bird that we get out here. It's turkey-sized, it doesn't look anything like a turkey. It's a beautiful glossy black with a bright red face, and they live in quite unique family groups. And they are, as I said, very endangered, but they do, at this time of year, they do start to breed. They start to lay their eggs, which means they are far more vocal than they might otherwise be. And since I came back from leave, which was the beginning of November, if I remember vaguely correctly, I'm never entirely sure where I am in space or time, but I think I came back around the beginning of November. And ever since then, every single morning, somewhere, I have heard the call of the ground hornbill, and it does make me wonder whether or not they're nesting in this vicinity, somewhere close to the northern boundary. Unfortunately, this morning, no luck. Our ground hornbill have evaded us completely. We'll keep checking though, because I've said that before and then found them. They have a strange ventriloquist effect to their call. It makes it sound as though it's coming from closer than it actually is. Especially on a cold morning like this morning. So we'll see. I have not yet given up hope. I'm also checking the northern boundary for any sign of tracks for Mvula. Because Mvula spends a lot of his time in the property to the north of us. Mvula is a male leopard that I have not really had the pleasure of getting to know. He was actually moving out of Djuma by the time I started working here, so I've only encountered him a couple of times. But it's been quite a while since we last saw him, and I just want to check and see whether or not he's come wandering down this road at any point. And then we'll do a full circuit, go look for Shadow, and then come back to the Nkuhumas. It is dramatically noticeable. It feels as though we're driving in a different world. In the last, if I look back on the last 4 weeks, since the rains, since the first proper big rains. No, because the first proper big rains actually only happened on Djuma and around Djuma. So the place was teeming with elephants and buffalo. And with their absence, it almost feels a little bit empty. Yes, we've got the lions and the leopards, and that is wonderful. But it really does feel like we're driving in a completely different place. The change is that dramatic. Ooh, that could be quite cool. Of course, you're not going to stay, are you? Because you never are. You got it. Well done, genre. It is what looked like a red-billed wood hippo. I had a moment where I thought it might have been a scimitar bull. No, it's not. It's a red-billed wood hippo, or a green wood hippo, as they are now known. And it's gone. The joys of live wildlife filming, and particularly live bird filming. While we continue on in search of anything this morning, let's head across to Bushwalk to Stef, who's good at finding everything.
I've got an interesting thing to show you over here, absolutely. And I think, I'm going to say what I think it is. You can take a screen grab if you want, we can keep it for later analysis. But I think that this is the home of a bagworm. Now, bagworms are interesting little things. They get born, and basically from the second they are born, they construct a shelter out of little twigs or thorns or whatever substrate is closest to them, grass in many species instance. This one has used uniform sticks cut to a uniform size, and I think it's still in here. Now, while they're immature, both the male and the female bagworm live inside these little homes. But as they mature, when they become adults, the females stay inside their bags for their whole lives, eventually emerging as a bagworm moth from their little cocoon, leaving behind their homes. The males, when they become mature, they leave their we're going to quickly send you over to Byron. He's got a big surprise for you.
Keep going. Wow, look at this, everyone, a black mamba. Brian, there's a little gap at the bottom there. Can you see the head? Look at that. Oh, wow, this is incredible. And you all know I love snakes. But this, and this was an incredible spot by Brian. He saw it right at the top of the tree. There were a lot of birds up there. And they were, I think they're alarm calling now at the snake. They didn't make a noise earlier. Whoa. This really gets my skin crawling a little bit. Even though I love snakes, I've got a huge respect for the black mamba because it is such a fast, powerful snake and obviously very, very venomous. I'm going to try to keep a good eye on it and see where it goes. See if it climbs back up the tree. Incredible how agile they are moving through these trees. These very, very thick trees. Where's he going? He's going back up. Incredible how agile